In 1977, a quiet suburban neighborhood in Enfield, North London, became the site of one of the most unsettling hauntings ever recorded. Within the walls of this modest, unassuming house on Green Street, a single mother and her 4 children experienced a terror they would never forget. Strange sounds, objects moving on their own, what began as small disturbances would soon escalate into something much darker. This is the true story of the Enfield Poltergeist. It started with soft knocking sounds, almost too quiet to notice, but the noises grew louder and more frequent. One night, 11-year-old Janet and her sister Margaret were jolted awake by loud, relentless knocking echoing through their bedroom walls. Then they watched in horror as their heavy dresser began to slide across the floor on its own. They screamed for their mother, Peggy, who rushed in to see the furniture moving by itself. Peggy tried to push it back, but it wouldn't budge, almost as if something invisible was holding it in place.
Terrified and desperate, Peggy called the police. When officers arrived, they inspected the home, looking for any explanation. At first, everything seemed normal, but then, as they stood in the living room, a heavy chair slid across the floor on its own, right in front of them. The officers recorded the incident, noting what they'd seen, but they had no answers. They left, shaken, leaving Peggy and her children to fend for themselves against an invisible threat. Research arrived to study the strange phenomena. They set up cameras, tape recorders, and other equipment, hoping to capture evidence of the poltergeist. For months, they documented every strange sound, every object moved, and every chilling moment, trying to make sense of what was happening in the Hodgson home. Then came one of the most chilling moments of all. One night, 11-year-old Janet seemed to slip into a trance, her voice changing to a low, gravelly tone, far beyond her years. She introduced herself as Bill Wilkins, claiming to be a man who had died in the house years before. Investigators recorded the voice, stunned as Janet recounted details she couldn't have possibly known. She spoke of his death, his life, all in this eerie, unnatural voice. Was it possession? Or something beyond explanation? As time went on, the poltergeist's powers seemed to grow. Objects were thrown violently across rooms, and Janet herself was reportedly lifted from her bed, her body seemingly pulled by an unseen force. The investigators captured photos showing her suspended in mid-air, as though levitating. The family was terrified, living in constant fear of what might happen next. Despite the evidence gathered, not everyone believed. Skeptics accused the girls of faking the events for attention. Journalists and researchers argued over the authenticity of the recordings and photos. Some claimed to have caught the girls playing tricks, bending spoons, and making noises to fool the investigators. But the Hodgson family remained adamant. They knew what they had seen, and they knew it was real. Years later, Janet and her sister Margaret still recall those terrifying events as vividly as ever. Though many questioned and doubted, the haunting left a lasting impact on their lives. The Enfield Poltergeist remains one of the most famous and well-documented hauntings in history, leaving us to wonder, was it a genuine encounter with the supernatural or something beyond our understanding? The truth may never be known.